Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episode 11, Rosetta. I don't even know what to say at this point.
Yeah, it seems like anything we would add as far as jokes, we've already covered. They're doing the same thing they've been doing all season. So this may not be a very long review because there's not much to say that we haven't said before other than to present the plot that they tried to give us. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
I'm going to do this slightly different than usual. I'm just going to say, the book Tarka thing, they're trying to piggyback on the Discovery in order to get to species 10C so that they can shut down the power source from the DMA. And in order to do that, they have to get on Discovery to add a patch in engineering so that Zora's sensors don't pick them up, piggybacking on the hull. Of course, they somehow are able to put some sort of device on their upper arm and beam onto Discovery undetected. They go into a Jeffries tube. Tarka makes it to engineering, adds the patch, but then of course Jet Reno finds him. So what does he do? He takes her freaking hostage. So she's now on Tarka and Book's ship. Book, he seeks out the president of, the Earth Alliance or whatever it is.
He was president of Earth, whatever it was.
Yeah, after he overhears that the new DMA is threatening Earth, and of course she was on his side back when they took the initial vote as to whether or not they should destroy the DMA controller or if they should try for diplomatic solutions. So he seeks her out, and she agrees to help him. And that's where things stand with Tarka and Book.
That whole plot line with them, like somehow, and I don't understand any of this, Tarka and Book beamed on to Discovery to, I'm assuming when they say patch, they meant like patch the sensor system like in a software way.
Yes.
So that they could create a blind spot so they could attach to the hull, because Book had confidence that Michael Burnham could figure out how to get through this energy field more than Tarka could, or at least she would do it sooner because she's the best ever of everything. And it just, like you mentioned, they transported on Discovery. I don't know how they did that. They wouldn't have Discovery. They were flying between galaxies. Didn't they have any sort of navigation shields or anything on? But fine, let's just say that's the case. But then on their person, they had these little dots on their shoulders, these things they put on that I guess cloaked them from Zora's internal sensors. And so the joke I was making is, why don't they just make a really big one of those and stick it on Book's ship, and then you don't have to patch anything? So I that whole storyline with those two, because it was bouncing in and out of storylines between Book and Tarka and the other stupidity. Nothing really happened. I mean, even the way Tarka was caught by Reno was stupid. I mean, she's like walking around going, "Hey, somebody pulling some funny business in here," and she's looking around, and Tarka's like, hidden under a console or something, like a child playing hide and seek. It was stupid.
Yep. Yeah, and that's everything that happened with them in this episode.
And that was the best. That was the best story of the two again. And this one wasn't very good. Like last week, there was the potential of being good. This one had nothing to do with good. Neither storyline was any good.
Well, it felt like the necessity for them to get on Discovery to install that patch was just a way so that they could put Book in touch with the leader President of Earth,
yep,
so that Jet Reno could be kidnapped and placed on Book and Tarka's ship.
And it was funny because we watched this again with your mom and sister. When they kept talking about President this or President that, and your mom asked, "Well, wait a minute, I thought the other lady was the president. Who's this?" And we had to explain to her the difference between the President of Earth and the President of the Federation. And, I mean, your mom made a good point. It's like, why are there so many presidents? And then, of course, then I asked the question later on, all these leaders are on this one ship that went through this dangerous mission to go through this galactic barrier.
Yeah.
So if Discovery gets destroyed, which there was a high probability based on just the mission they were going to, all these planets were going to be without their leaders. The Federation would be out there without their leader. Navarre would be without their leader. Earth would be without their leader. Isn't that a huge risk that they shouldn't be doing this? Not all the leaders. They should send representatives. I know Navarre, she did say, "Oh, our rep didn't show up in time for
Couldn't
whatever
get there
reason.
in time, yeah.
So, I mean, I had to show up.
So she went.
But
yeah.
the Earth president was there, and the Federation president was there, and it's like, I'm probably adding more thought to this episode than it deserves.
No, because, I mean, that brings me to my first point about Michael Burnham's mission to that dead planet that they encountered. That first planet inside of the, whatever the hell that energy field is.
Well, and that was another thing, too. So, and I know, this means I had expectations of this with Discovery. But the space between galaxies, I would assume, is this just endless, boring void with very little to no stars. And much like I've complained before about this series, not only is the galaxy does the galaxy feel so small. At the beginning of this episode, they were right at this place they were going to investigate. I was kind of expecting them to be on the ship, just traveling through this dead void forever.
Yeah.
And maybe adding a little bit of tension to, oh my gosh, this just is something we've never experienced before. It's just so tense. No, I mean, like, snap your fingers, right away they were at this dead planet that they were going to investigate to try to get some sort of understanding of the civilization that was doing this DMA. And I was disappointed because I thought, well, maybe we could get a little bit of a sense of how lonely and large these distances are between galaxies.
Mm-hmm.
And nah, I mean, they were right there, snap of a finger, they were right there. And their spore drive, they said, doesn't work outside the galaxies. So there was no like, oh, they just instantly jump with their mushroom drive. It's like, no, they were probably just doing normal warp drive between galaxies, and they just immediately got there.
They rode in that giant antimatter bubble.
Well, I think that was just to get through the barrier, and then I think it was just void after that, but maybe not. I mean,
I don't know.
I just thought it was void after they got through. They rode the bubbles through the barrier.
Yeah, like you said, it seemed too small. But I've been having. Well, I'll get into it in our Picard review, but I had a problem with the way that they treated travel in that as well. But that's going to be in the next video. Back to what I wanted to say. My first complaint about the Michael Burnham mission down to that dead planet. Finally, the president of the Federation questioned her about why the captain and the first officer were both going on this away mission.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who's in charge of Discovery when the top two people are gone? I mean, it was ridiculous. Why would you ever send the captain and first officer on an away mission together? It's just ridiculous.
And the explanation's given. Now, I can kind of see the point here. I see your point. I think your point of having somebody on Discovery was more important than Saru's benefit on this mission. But supposedly, because they established in Season 1 how Saru had the ability to see things far beyond human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the answer Michael Burnham gave, is that Saru has higher senses, so he might be able to detect stuff. So the people that went on this mission were Saru, and they explained why. Michael Burnham, because somehow, I mean, I know she's been explained as this anthropologist, but that's like only when it's convenient. Other times, she's like incompetent when it comes to understanding other cultures. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't do well in first contact situations, at least from what we've seen. Again, with the Klingons and then with the butterfly people.
Yep.
She's not good at that kind of thing.
No.
She shouldn't be sent on that kind of thing.
And like her profession it was just weird, but at least I could see why she was going there.
Well, you can be an expert in a field and also not have people skills.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she may very well be this incredibly knowledgeable xenoanthropologist, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she should be in charge of a first contact situation.
Yep.
She shouldn't be the facing forward.
She could be like
person.
She could be like Rodney was on Stargate Atlantis.
Oh, exactly.
Where he was a very brilliant man, but you didn't want him dealing with other people.
Oh God, no.
And I guess to finish out what I was saying, so there were 4 people, if I'm remembering, that were on this mission. Saru, because of his ability to sense things beyond human beings, although I would argue, isn't that what tricorders are for? But whatever.
Yeah.
And then Michael Burnham, because of her expertise in xenoanthropology.
Mm-hmm.
Then Detmer, I guess because Detmer was the best pilot on the ship, so maybe that one makes a little bit of sense.
So she piloted the shuttle, yeah.
And then I guess the doctor, because they needed some sort of medic on the team. I don't know if they have any of their doctors in that sick bay. I personally wouldn't have sent him.
No, I wouldn't have either. That was weird. And again, he seemed to be sent for psychological reasons rather than for medical, physical reasons. But that just brings us into the next point as to what they were actually accomplishing down on that planet. I don't know. Do you want to take it?
You explain these things better. All I knew is what she explained is they wanted to go down to this dead planet to try to figure out how this culture works, what their context was, what their frame of references for how they exist are. So they were trying to she was trying to understand their culture by visiting that dead planet. At least that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah. So they're on the planet and they're trying to figure out what happened on this dead planet. And they see these huge bones. So I don't know if there's like giant sandworm creatures living on this planet or what. But okay, whatever. And then there's like this dust. And this planet is very teal and orange. And apparently the dust is...
Well, let's point out before that. So they were wearing these suits when they landed their shuttle, and then they got out and they were wearing these suits. So I made the assumption, unlike in the older Star Treks where they'd kind of go out on a planet and it's like, well, in the Next Generation they addressed it a bit by saying the transporter had some sort of biofilter when they transported you back. But, normally like in the original series, they just beamed down on the planet, no spacesuits or anything. So in this one, they had what looked to me like spacesuits. So I'm like, oh, finally, they've got these suits on in this atmosphere. They don't know how safe it is. Throughout this episode, they kept mentioning they were encountering chemicals and stuff that were unknown to their science. So like, yeah, this made sense. They were in these self-contained spacesuits in this unknown environment. Of course that would make sense. And I assume they had self-contained oxygen units and everything. That was my assumption. Now go ahead and talk about the dust.
That was a bad assumption.
Yep.
Because the suits they were wearing were using programmable matter filtration. Why are you just filtering anything and allowing that into the suit? I don't understand. I mean, like you said, I would have assumed they would be wearing some sort of hazmat suit.
Yep.
Just in case of who knows what's out there.
Because even in the original series, they did occasionally wear those suits, like the Naked Now. I think the Naked Now was the original. I always get that one and the Next Generation one mixed up. But they have the original series had occasionally they wore those suits when they were in places they knew were going to be infected or they needed oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed they were in these suits. They kind of look like Tron suits, but I assumed that they would be self-contained units. But they weren't. They were like filtering the air around them, which makes me wonder, why wear the suit at all if you're just filtering the stuff that's coming in? You've already admitted that this, as you were heading toward this planet, like there were chemicals that you've never seen before. So why would you assume that a filtrated system would make sense? You want a self-contained suit. That's what I thought they were. I was actually nodding when I thought they were wearing a self-contained suit. And then they started acting weird. They were going through this whole big discussion. Is it psychic energy or what's causing this issue? Again, going with their stupidity. I'm like, yeah, it'd have to be something like that because they're in self-contained suits. And then when they said, oh, our filtrated system didn't know about this stuff. It's like, well, why were you wearing anything that filters any air that you don't even understand?
Yep, yeah, because, again, it didn't know about the stuff, so it was letting this dust in. And Saru was the first one to come in contact with it, and of course he's freaking out because he feels impending death or senses it or whatever. And
well, I think that has to do with, remember in the first season or two, you had that ganglia?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's going back to that. And then... the next person picks it up, and that happened to be Culber, and he's sensing all sorts of horror and fear. And then, of course, Burnham gets it as well. The only person who didn't get it was Detmer, and it turns out it's because she didn't touch the dust stuff. So she goes ahead and reprograms the programmable matter filtration system to filter that stuff out.
That one concept, they've been trying to milk this programmable matter crap, and last episode it was programmable antimatter.
It's magic.
Which, as somebody pointed out in one of our comments, antimatter and matter, when they hit each other... they explode.
Kaboomy.
That's how the warp drives work. And that's why you need the dilithium crystals, because that's the control rod between the matter and antimatter. So when those stupid bots were spraying that programmable antimatter on Discovery should have blew up as soon as the antimatter hit the ship. But they're using this programmable matter as like magic for everything. Yeah. So now it's a magical filtration system that, for some reason, they thought could filtrate out stuff they didn't know about. It's just, they've milked this concept. I didn't like it when they first introduced it. And every time they bring it up, it reminds me that these people have no ideas about anything.
Yeah, so I mean, it was so stupid. So, I mean, then they got this stuff filtered out now, and they're talking about it, and apparently Culber decides this is like the equivalent of pheromones for species 10C, and that emotions or feelings are going to be the universal language, and I'm just like, oh God.
And that's not an exaggeration.
Like, am I being trolled at this point? Because
we've been joking all season that it's always about the feelings show. Everything here is about feelings. And I don't mean human feelings don't matter, but they're ramping this up. Like, the show is basically feelings are the primary plot, and then anything else that happens is like a secondary B or C plot. And they're leading here where feelings is like core to this new species. And it's you couldn't make this joke up. I mean, as much as we've made fun of this show about over-feeling everything, now this new species seems to be like that's the core of what they are, is all about feelings.
Yeah, oh God, it was so bad. Oh God. But anyways, so then they're in this area on the planet that apparently had been a nursery, and so they're all feeling the sense of peace and safety, and it's like, I thought this shit was being filtered out, but apparently not.
Yeah, you might want to check that filtered system, because if this is all just because of what's in the air and you thought you fixed it, well, you didn't fix it because now you're getting new stuff. Again, made no sense, but because it was positive experiences, nobody was worried about feeling that.
Yeah.
It was great. They had these nice, warm, fuzzy feelings.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I missed it and they chose to let that stuff in so that they could understand it better. I don't know. But it was dumb. Yeah, because then everybody's like, Saru is like, oh, I'd forgotten the sensation of fear, and Culber's staying behind because he likes the feeling of being at peace, because apparently he's still, a complete basket case because of everything he's been through. And Detmer, Michael Burnham is commending her on how she handled the situation and remained cool.
Speaking of Detmer...
Well, no, I'm not done yet,
okay.
not done yet. And Detmer is crediting her PTSD therapy.
Detmer and Adira. Because a side story going on Discovery. Now, I asked you during the episode if Adira still had the Trill in her, and I think we both said we think the Trill's still in her.
Yes.
In them, excuse me. I think she's a them.
Them, yes.
She's a them. I think they're a them. There we go. I want to make sure I get the language right.
Yeah.
But Adira was saying how she admired Detmer, and basically she was super awesome, and Adira was behaving like, I don't know, a teenager.
Like a teenager.
Girl. And that's when I turned to you and asked, does she still have the Trill in there? And
yes!
You said, yeah. So why? I mean, this is a person, I believe, when they introduced her character, she was an admiral at one point. One of their lives was an admiral.
Yes, like one before the one that because I believe Blue was right before Adira got the Trill. And right before that, I believe, was an admiral in Starfleet.
And it was like a respected admiral.
Yes.
So this, Detmer's the coolest thing, man. She's cool under pressure. I want to be just like her. Why? Like, that's not at all what happened with the Trill experience like that.
Well, it's like they don't understand what their personality should be, given that she's a Trill. Whoever created the Bible for the show, whoever did the sheet for the character of Adira, they clearly either didn't do their job properly, or whoever is doing the writing isn't reading the information that they should to write this competently.
It was cringy. It was a teenage person going, this person's the coolest, man. When I grow up, I want to be this person. And a Trill doing that, who has lived hundreds of years, it was ridiculous. Now, again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she doesn't have the Trill anymore. But even if she didn't, those memories still should be somewhat inside of her. So I can't believe she would behave like a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah, I mean, it was cringy. Oh my God. It was so stupid. And even my mom is sitting there like, why is this teenager on this starship?
Yeah. And then we tried to explain to her, oh, there's a Trill in there, and this person actually has the experiences of hundreds of years.
Even though they don't act like it.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Detmer Detmer apparently has daddy issues, and she had never before felt these feelings of love and safety while she was in the nursery. I mean, it was just, again, it was more of the feelings show. As I said, I'm not sure if we're being trolled at this point. Maybe we all are. Maybe they decided to just turn this into the feelings show.
I mean,
and this whole thing is going to be feelings, and it's going to be feelings and emotions is how they communicate with this other species 10C. And the thing I think that really got me was that they keep asking, okay, so this species has clearly been through the same thing that Book's planet went through. They lost a lot. So they're basically Book at this point, as far as they lost their home planet. So they should have some empathy for, well, Book and the people of Earth and the people of Navarre. And I think there was another planet that was destroyed as well. The question is, okay, so, well, what if these people know what they're doing and they just don't care? How do you communicate with people like that? And it felt very heavy-handed. And
I mean, my guess on where they're going with this, and I could be wrong, I think that this species, much like the Skin of Evil in Next Generation, where they put all their negativity into this one entity, I'm guessing here, and I might be way off, I'm guessing that this new race, at one point they went through so much that they took all their feelings and they removed them from their species. And that Michael Burnham and Discovery are going to have to re-show them what feelings are about.
Well, because they kept repeating that, empathy is the only way to connect and find common ground.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with all of this. The whole thing is just so weird. Yeah, and then there was this part where the president of the Federation was scolding that, was he a galactic linguist or some shit like that? I don't even remember how they introduced him in the previous episode.
Scrabble in the rec room or something.
Yeah, and she was chastising him for not being tactful enough. And so then he has an opportunity to show some tact, and he does. And it's weird. It's almost like they're trying to create some sort of Sesame Street-like show to teach people how to speak to each other and show empathy. And it's as someone who's been through a lot of therapy myself, this is exactly how they teach you to try to communicate, like if you're like in a partnership or relationship or something, to communicate with each other so that you don't get into big fights and you're not dicks to each other. And it just kind of feels like, again, people have said it's like the writers are writing their own therapy sessions and turning them into episodes. That is so accurate.
It's weird. It's going beyond, I realize human beings, part of the human experience is having emotions, whether it be hate, love, go through the whole range of emotions. I get that. Star Trek's always been about that, to show no matter how advanced we get, we're still going to be human beings. But what they're doing here is, in my opinion, they're saying that all human beings are these defective creatures. And if you don't constantly validate them, that somehow they're going to go off the rails.
Yeah.
That's what that scene with the president and that linguist, that's how I took that, is she was like saying to him, you were kind of harsh. I think she said you were harsh to Michael Burnham, I think is what she said at first. You can't be like that because we need to support each other and work together. And it's like, okay, I mean, because you're right. I think they're trolling us at this point. This is so ridiculous what they're doing. This is not anymore about remembering human beings are these creatures with these emotions, and we have to make sure that we remember how to empathize with other people. This is well beyond this. This is going into like major therapy sessions.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is that the thing I think that bothers me the most is that it's not teaching that in life you will encounter people who are carrying their own baggage and they're going to act like dicks. You have to find a way to just put up with that crap and maneuver around them. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to change their behavior. You shouldn't be demanding that they change their behavior. That's not your battle to be fighting. Just get a thicker skin and walk the fuck away.
Sometimes it's not even your right to do that.
Yeah.
Somebody's allowed to talk any way they want. That linguist was allowed to talk any way they want in a free society. that person should be allowed to say stuff without being scolded that the language they used was wrong.
Well, plus, I think the other thing that bothers me about that is, okay, so what if that guy was actually on the autism spectrum?
Mm-hmm.
Would it be okay for them to be chastising him for his not being tactful enough? For him just being very direct and to the point?
Again, Rodney McKay.
Yes.
Rodney McKay from Atlantis.
He was an abrasive individual.
If Rodney McKay was on Discovery, he'd probably be imprisoned for being a speaker of bad words.
Yeah.
I'm not talking profanity, he'd be harsh with people, and that can't be accepted on Discovery.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what they're trying to get at there. You know, I guess, for me, you know what? If you're capable of just being a decent person and not walking around being a dick all the time, just give people the benefit of the doubt. Because you don't know what kind of struggle they've got going on that you have nothing about. But this is like, I don't know, is trying to create these pod people. And if you refuse to go along with their program, if you don't use the exact right incantation of words, then it's okay for them to attack you.
The way they're behaving, and this is so strange because it's, again, we're going to review Picard next. The way that they're constantly making sure people are aligned with their views, it's like they're like a Borg collective or something. They're, that linguist was out of line by doing what he was doing. We must bring him back into the collective. It was the Borg collective. It was weird.
Well, and again, this is like the opposite of the absolute candor that we get from, was it Elnor? Is that the kid's name on Picard? The Romulan elf, basically. But yeah, I mean, the absolute candor, apparently you're not allowed to be that way in Star Trek Discovery.
Yep.
And the one final thing I'll say that, once Saru got back from his away mission, the Navarre president asked him to go for a walk, and of course he was all happy to go. So
go on their date.
Exactly. So in the middle of all this, Saru's finding love with a Vulcan.
That's nice. That's really nice.
And you know what? That's all I have to say about that. If you guys have any insight that will help shed some light on this crap, please comment in the comments below.
I mean, we made more jokes than I thought we could because this episode was bad and boring again. I didn't care about, at least last week I cared a little bit about the book and Tarka story. I mean, their story was just as stupid as the Michael Burnham landing party story.
Yeah, it wasn't very
There
good
was
at
nothing
all.
here. Much like I say for most of the episodes, even if you have access to this for free, I can't recommend you watch this unless you're going to sit with your friends and rip it apart, because it is pretty decent, because we were doing this after a while. It's so ridiculous. If you actually do want to sit and get a pizza and sit on the TV and just have a good time for 40 minutes ripping on something, Discovery actually does work for that. So if that's something you like to do with your friends, then go ahead and watch this episode, because it's worth pointing and ripping on. It's just so stupid.
Yeah.
So I guess we should probably just end this because there's nothing else we could add.
Nope. That's it.
Feel free to, please like, subscribe, and comment.
Hey, and share all over the place if you like what we're doing and you want us to grow as a channel. We'd appreciate that too.
Definitely.
So now we gotta go ahead and do Picard. God help us. Thanks for listening.
Take care.